My name is Dana O'Kee. My main name is Dana Walls. I am 34. I'm from Western Kentucky. I was born to two parents who weren't hippies, but they were kind of about as close as hippies come around here. And they raised my siblings and I with a crazy notion that we could be anything we wanted to be. I march for a lot of reasons. And there's a lot of reasons why I do a lot of the volunteer work that I do to help our communities and women's rights and equal rights for everyone. But my most important, the issue that's dearest to me right now is because the Affordable Care Act, which some of our Republicans and the members of the Senate and our president and vice president want to take away. If it hadn't been for that, my mom wouldn't have been able to get treatment while going through stage 2 breast cancer. She has pre-existing conditions, and so even before breast cancer, insurance isn't easy to come by. And being self-employed, and was 57 at the time, the Affordable Care Act was a godsend. And she'd only had it for a couple of weeks when she found a lump in her right breast, I believe. So thankfully, since she had the Affordable Care Act already, she was able to get treatment. As it stands now, she's in 2 years in remission, but she's still taking chemo pills that they advised her to take for 5 years because her cancer was estrogen driven or fed. And without it, she would be in over $200,000 in medical debt. At her age and her income, she would have lost everything. So had it not been for the Affordable Care Act, I may not have my mom here anymore. So I will fight and scream at and talk to every politician I can think of to save that for her. And that's a big reason why I marched. They call us snowflakes and crybabies because they think we're upset about the election, and they think that we're just crying about we didn't get our way, and so we're a bunch of snowflakes is the term I hear the most of. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Just know that we're fighting for you, and we will continue to fight for you. Because even if you're not like me, and I don't know you, or I do know you, I certainly have friends and family that have told me, that these marches weren't for them, that we don't fight, we don't reflect your rights or your needs. We do. And I will continue to do that. And that doesn't discourage me. In fact, that encourages me to fight more.
Equal rights! Now! What do we want? Equal rights! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Equal rights! When do we want it? Now!
I'm Lane Owens. I'm a junior at Murray High School. I play football. I used to do speech team. I don't really do a lot of extracurricular activities except for football and my part-time job, and that's usually what kind of takes up a lot of my time. I march as a way to kind of show solidarity with my political views. I'm very left of center in my political views, especially for somewhere like Murray and somewhere like Western Kentucky. I definitely view myself as a very liberal person, and I definitely thought that the march was a way that I could express that in a very positive, productive manner. And so I rounded up a couple of people, and we all thought that, hey, we should just go to this march, and that's exactly what we did. I got an email about November 25th from the organizers of the march, because my family is relatively politically active in the county. I was among one of the first people to find out that there was going to be a march. And looking at the list of the names on the email, I realized that I was about the only person under 40. And I just thought, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. This isn't going to get out, but I'll still go and support, I'll support my political views anyway. And when I showed up there with the people that I had gotten to go, I was just astounded with how many people there were, especially for a small town. Murray's a super small town, especially whenever college isn't in session. But just so many people. I was just astounded because I hadn't really, being a young person, I hadn't really been a part of anything like that before. And it was kind of eye-opening to realize that there are people around here with my political views. There are people out there who think like me. And Murray is, a bastion of liberal thought. Like, we do have the university here. We do have things that are a little more open-minded and do kind of present us with those opportunities. But I just didn't know that so many people would actually be willing to put themselves out there and go to something like this. And I was really surprised, and I was really happy to understand that, people would do this with us, and that there was hope. There was the ability that we could band together and maybe see a positive change during these next 4 years, which were, after election night, pretty bleak for me.
Love is love. Love is love. Love is love. Love is love.
My name is Peter Murphy, and I teach in the English Department of English and Philosophy at Murray State University. I came here in 1998 to chair the Department of English. It was then the Department of English. Before I came here, I spent 17 years in Buffalo organizing resistance to the rise of the right in all of its various manifestations. I taught at an anarchist college where we made decisions based on consensus, decisions that included not only staffing but salaries for staff and student grades in a classroom. Resisted the war in Vietnam. I mean, I've been involved in
Your scholarship, honey.
leftist politics since at least 1969. My scholarship is on men and masculinity from a feminist perspective. I wrote a book called Studs, Tools, and the Family Jewels, Metaphors Men Live By, that is celebrating its 15th year. And given the discourse that our current president seems to be so infatuated with, the book has gained new relevance. Honey?
My name is Sarah Gutworth, and I teach painting in the Department of Art and Design at Murray State University. And I'm married to Peter. I would say that my relationship to politics is grounded in two experiences. I'm Jewish, and so I come from a culture that is highly political and aware of politics because it's a very precarious, has been historically a very precarious culture. Also the Jewish religion, which I don't consider myself an observant Jew, but the Jewish religion is very grounded in ideas about justice and social justice. And so that's the first aspect. And then the second thing is that I grew up in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a Quaker city. It was founded by Quakers. And my father taught at a Quaker college, and I went to Quaker schools. So Quakers, of course, also are a very political group. They founded Greenpeace. They are militantly pacifist, if that's not a contradiction in terms. They have a great sense of social engagement, and so I think those two. Well, I would have to add to that I was raised by a radical feminist. My mother is a radical feminist, probably from birth, and so her sense of social justice has a lot to do with her sense of what it means to be a woman in a patriarchal culture. And she founded a women's studies program at Westchester State University. Her scholarship is on women writers, and so she raised me with a very strong feminist consciousness. So when I met Peter, and his scholarship was on feminism from masculine perspective, or thinking about masculinity from a feminist perspective, I thought, what an interesting guy. I mean, honestly, Peter has said this. We were sitting around one morning. As I recall, it wasn't the day after the election, but it was some time after the election, feeling just miserable and frustrated, and we were debating, how could we feel less bad, really, essentially, and the Women's March was in the news, and my recollection is that Peter said, well, if we were in Philadelphia, we would go to the march. And I said, but we're here. We should do something here. And it was kind of a radical idea, because for us, and as Peter said, we've lived here 18 years, it's a very conservative community. I've never lived in a more conservative community, and I lived in Georgia for 2 years, and it was not as Bible Belty as Kentucky. So I think we thought we couldn't do something like this here, and then we thought, why don't we try? So that's kind of what we did. I mean, we just thought, we'll just arbitrarily come up with a bunch of people that we think might be interested, and we'll send out an email. And we wanted to not make it a Murray State thing, so we tried to include as many people from the community who weren't Murray State, though of course we know a lot of people at Murray State. And we just sent out an email saying we're interested in getting together and talking about having a march in Murray. And it was the week before Thanksgiving break. It was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving break, right, honey?
I think it was a Tuesday.
The Tuesday before Thanksgiving break. And we got like 45 people showed up for this meeting, and we thought, that's crazy. People really care about this. And Peter's a good organizer, and he immediately said, we need to get a steering committee. We need to put someone in charge of logistics, and we need to put someone in charge of publicity, and we need to put someone in charge of what did we have? Posters and banners, and we had someone in charge of student recruitment, and someone in charge of community recruitment, and we had a press liaison and a communications czar, and we were off. I mean, people volunteered for all of those positions, and we started to get committees together, and the next meeting that we had 100 people in the room. So, people were really motivated to make this thing happen.
Rick Gutworth and Peter Murphy did not organize this march. We brought people together in a room, all of whom were very interested in figuring out some response to the rise of hatred and hate speech and bigotry and intolerance and
fascism. Let's just use that word.
Right. That's what motivated me, and I maintain my fear of the rise of fascism in America today. But we were very fortunate also. I mean, that's another point that I always stress, is that there was depth and breadth of intelligence in the room that we were very fortunate to have available to us. So, we might have kept the things going in the right direction, but we were supported by very intelligent,
many people.
Very motivated people. So that's...
Yeah, it's funny when you said that. I think that one of the reasons why I was so happy to see so many families with small children at this march is that my parents took me to marches when I was a child. And that instilled in me the notion that you stand up for what you believe. You stand up when you see something that is happening. and you don't act, then you're complicit. You're complicit by your inaction. And I think that's a notion that too many Americans do not have. They do not have that sense that inaction is complicity.
Well, I think we're afraid. I mean, and I think we have good reason to be afraid. And the good news is that we have seen bullies in action before, and that the left has a rich tradition of opposing this kind of authoritarian inclination. I mean, there's an argument to be made that the last time that America saw the left as well organized as it was in response to the National Women's March on Washington was in the 70s, when we literally changed the United States of America. We ended the war in Vietnam. We brought civil rights. We endorsed women's rights. We organized a struggle that was nationwide. It was not only a march on Washington, though that was huge. The march against the war in Vietnam in the fall of 1970 was huge. This was bigger.
We were both there, but we didn't see each other.
We didn't know each other. And just the outreach. You know, I was just looking at the National Women's March website today, and you know, 5 million people in probably, I don't know, 300, 400 sites just across the United States of America. I'm optimistic. I mean, I'm pessimistic about Trump and his ilk, but I'm optimistic about the progressive response. And we're smarter. I mean, it's very important to realize that they want to take on, they want to plunder the environment, and the environmental movement in America is probably the most well organized and the most militant. They want to mess with women's rights. 600,000 women marched on Washington. How many million marched across the United States? I mean, we're smarter than we were 35 years ago. We've learned a lot.